I'm really happy we're doing this.
It's actually weird feeling. Even though it's take 5 for me, it's still a very weird feeling.
But I think it's every level of exposure is going to bring new feelings. I mean, we've had these conversations
Right.
hundreds of times over how many years? So
Yeah.
it's kind of just putting it more on display.
Yeah. I guess that's the fear, that it's not a controlled environment. Like a podcast, a video, YouTube, it's so uncontrolled. If it's free flow talking that just the two of us listen to, it's like, okay, it's very controlled because I know you know me. Put a camera on us, and now it's like it just feels different inside for me.
But I think it's interesting because you have to be honest about what is that control. In my head, when you say that, what I'm thinking is that the trust that I have in you creates a container. So I get to
talk off camera.
True.
Yeah.
So I get to choose what I get to say, and so that through that choice, I'm kind of appreciating the container that I'm taking. Now I'm trusting to that container enough where I get to go and share that. So I don't have control.
And here it's magnified.
Yeah.
That lack of control is magnified, and I think with time it becomes okay. Like every part of fear.
I mean, if I think about the way I control things because really I'm going to wind up being insecure about trusting, and I'm insecure about letting go.
Right.
So part of my fear about doing this. I mean, there's always a camera.
That's true. That's how I grew up. I and Royev, Eisen Shamaz.
So I never grew up that way. I mean, I grew up with that way, but it was a lot more scarier in my head than, I guess, seeing myself wherever it is that we're going to wind up putting this thing. But anyways, the fear I see inside of myself over sharing something like this is it leaves me more open to be scrutinized or praised. And being received on that end is going to be very, very interesting. I think the older I get, the more out there I'm going to be, and more exposed I'm going to be. And how does that actually
the more out there you want to be, the more out there I want to be, and the more out there I guess people want to be. It's like I can stay with the job I had 15 years ago, and I can say, okay, I want to change that. I want more of that, and then I can say, okay, I want a podcast where I'm at. And that puts me really on 4 steps further than where I'm even now.
Because it puts me into a situation where I get to actually own it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's rewind. Where did we meet? What is it, 15? No, it's 13 years.
About 13 years ago.
13 years. I walked into a workshop. It was Chauffeur.
Yeah.
An organization called Chauffeur.
In Morristown.
I came in on Friday. Now I know that they were there Thursday. And I pulled up Friday, and the goal was to help me better and change my life. And Mo was, I don't even know what exactly you were because I didn't know you. I know how I saw you, and at the time you were close to the lead person, who is Simcha. So you were close to him, and you were a facilitator, which means you did some of the work that we did on the workshop. And actually, I don't know if you remember, I didn't really connect with you my first workshop that I went to, right? It was Simcha, and it was like he was looked at like the prize. The prize. If I get to experience a process on that retreat with him, that's like I got my money's worth. But I saw you and I watched you, and you stood out in your own ways, and years later, here we are. I'm sitting and schmoozing.
So So definitely was an evolution. I think by the time we met, I was in Chauffeur probably around for 4 years. And then when I moved back to the States from Israel, we started...
You lived in Israel?
For 3 years.
Really?
You didn't know this?
Yeah, that's why we're doing it on camera.
There's so many things that we know and we don't know about each other.
Because half the stuff that I learned in conversation throughout the years is we're just talking. And I think today we decided to just put a camera on it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was in the yeshiva for 3 years. And then the first year that I was there, I immediately... it became really apparent to me I needed to figure my stuff out. That the journey wasn't just in learning, but it was also learning myself. So I found a therapist, a really, really, really good therapist. Specialized in trauma work and inner child work, and I think within 2 weeks of working with him, he showed me Chauffeur. I did Chauffeur there for 3 years.
You did Chauffeur in the States?
In Israel. In Israel.
Who ran it? Simcha?
No, one of the people that was kind of born into the organization and brought it to Israel. Simcha would come back and forth. when I moved in, and I grew in the organization, then in the follow-up groups and facilitating and doing my own work in therapy. When I would come back in the summer, I started facilitating here in the workshops in the States, and then grew in that. By the time I reached,
So you participated and you right away came back as staff?
I participated. Came back as staff, I think, about 2 or 3 months afterwards, and I never stopped.
Right.
It became
until a few months ago.
It became this wonderful evolution of my work. There are things I was doing in therapy that I would continue in group, things I would start in group that I would continue in therapy. And
how did you know Simcha before you participated
no,
in a workshop?
no.
So I walked in and I saw you in a workshop, and then you walked in and you saw Simcha in a workshop, and you're like, you wanted to become a Simcha? You said, I want to run this thing? Or you're
no.
Or
I never wanted to run this thing. It wasn't an interest of me to be him, but I wanted to understand him. I loved his compassion and his ability to connect and really go after what was really going on, the issue with, if you will, with the participants. And I appreciated his teachings. I was learning intensely on my own, but then he has this way of trying to find the relevance of Judaism in the inner work. Now, and over years, I just learned how to deepen that process and develop it and evolve from there. I still talk to him about once a year, if that. But
Right.
by the time we met, I was already living in New York, staffing these workshops. We started getting into different Jewish communities, a Chabad community, and then there was a workshop that we met. And then over time, I believe you came back once or twice.
I think I came to 2. I don't remember, but I was definitely, my last workshop was one advanced workshop.
Yeah, the facilitation training workshops, and then we started.
Yeah, that's it started, and the way to start was to participate in a certain amount of workshops. So that's what I did, and then it closed, and I was like, okay, what now? I knew nothing about inner work, emotional growth. I knew that place feels good, so I just want to keep going there.
But you touched on a certain point that any good facilitator knows that they need to be a participant in the process that they're facilitating.
Yes.
Many people see it, they're like, oh, I can do this, and then go, but they don't actually appreciate the effort and the time that it takes to running your own process. Yeah.
We spoke of this before we started, like as I'm putting myself out there the past year more, and I'm really making shifts in my life that come from what I want, like my best version of myself, but actually put it out there as this is what I do with my days. And the more I do that, the more I learn how much effort it takes, like how much input I need to put in order to get the result that I'm after. And when I'm watching someone else do it without actually experiencing it, I lack to notice that.
Correct.
It's a trick.
It's
a trick. Like the thought of like, oh, I want to do that. It's a trick. It's like a TV ad.
People expect that intimacy is always accessible, and the answer is yes. Intimacy is always accessible when you're willing to put in the work. When I'm willing to put in the effort, and the ingredients that go into the intimacy, the vulnerability, the authenticity, the sharing, the time, and the nights off as well. That actually takes work, and
right.
And if you make a business, however, around coaching people to being more intimate with themselves and more in touch with themselves and their relationships, you're going to need those assets worked on.
Yeah. Like I'm asked all the time, what is the difference between a coach and a therapist? It's like I'm thrown with that question. Like to me, I feel like, oh, what am I supposed to answer? Although it's very obvious. Like one is like has the knowledge around mental illness, and one is a coach, like to help me grow. Like it seems like an obvious answer, but then when I think of coaches or therapists or healers or any kind of medicine that's available, when the person that's hosting or gives the promise that hasn't done it themselves, that ends up messing with me. So I'm like thinking, oh, degree, like I know when I'm a life coach, and I know that I'm not qualified in certain things. I have ideas, I have thoughts, I have lots of opinions, which I'm hoping to do a lot on camera. But one thing I do know, which is what brings me back to, what you said about being a facilitator on a workshop and helping people through traumas, having experience being a participant. It's like, how does one practice helping someone with anything if never experienced it at all?
So,
you know.
so I mean, look, let's get some elephants out of the room. I did this for many, many, many years single. I wasn't married, and I was working with people that were married, and I had kids, and I had a lot of stuff that was showing up
That's
in
your elephant?
relationships. I mean, that was an elephant for a while. I was proud of it.
That was an elephant.
That was an elephant.
I remember as staff. I remember,
Yeah,
like, if
and
people didn't ask if you're married or not, we wouldn't.
And I would
volunteer.
carry a lot of shame around it, and then people were kind of like thrown by it because they're like, "Oh, he mentioned that if I had a wife." I'm like, I was really careful not to outright lie and talk about my, fake wife. I would always try to say, like, if I had a wife or when I have a daughter. But you're really looking for the lowest common denominators as a facilitator and how to connect with them and how to really, really meet them in their humanness.
Right.
To answer the thing about a
therapist,
therapist or coach,
knowing the work myself versus certification, what's stronger? Like someone that hasn't processed certain aspects of their life and has the qualification of understanding the boundary, the diameter. Like,
so there's a lot of people that know the content.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that know the content, have no idea what the context of life is.
The actual experience. And it doesn't mean that it's not helpful.
Absolutely.
If fakert, it could be really helpful sometimes to have someone holding space that's not in there, and that is super valuable. I've been to therapy for years with licensed therapists and not coaching, and then I came to a place in my life where coaching was really, really valuable because the person on the other side of the table or chair really knows where I'm at.
Well, a coach really wants, the way I understand a coach, really wants to move you through a specific process that he or she is putting out that it actually works. So I'm at A, I want to get to B, and I need help along the way. I need somebody to coach me through it. And so that's going to be really, really helpful. Some life coaches that I know of have this whole thing of like, we're not going to dig. We're not going to get stuck into your story. We're not going to process the old traumas. We're just going to move through these different life challenges. So I think coaches are phenomenal. I think therapists, really, for somebody that wants to go into that therapy world and make meaningful change, and it may be slower for some people because there's all these different types of therapy.
You refer to the process, like the results.
So I think
less result oriented.
A good therapeutic dynamic is going to have elements of coaching, and I think every good coaching dynamic is going to have therapeutic processes in it. Yes. So I think it's really contingent on how the content meets the context.
I do find something lately that I hear from clients, and I hear from my mother recently mentioned to me something about someone. It's like when people have the degree, and with the degree they have like a free pass to say anything.
So did I tell you when I was going for my doctorate?
No,
you didn't know this.
I knew you started some kind of a schooling, which you stopped.
So one of the vision, I was inheriting it from my father, and he really wanted me to do it because, who doesn't want doctor in his name? I thought the only way to work with people was, okay, go become a psychologist and go. The feedback that I was getting from my therapist and from the people that were around me was like, a PsyD program would be really, really good, but at the end of the day, it's not going to teach you what you really want to know. I did the research experience. In order to get into programs, it was very, very highly competitive. I wound up getting into Boston. I drove to Boston on like a Thursday, or I slept in Boston that Thursday night, had the interview, got accepted, and then at the same time chauffeur tanked. So I was really chauffeur tanked. I got into a program, but it was 5 hours away. Leave my family, leave my whole system, and I already did that when I went to Israel and came back. So after a lot of debate and mentorship and rabbis and parents, it was like, okay, fine, go to work, go to the business world. And I'm really happy I did that. I'm really happy I didn't get to take out the student loans. I'm really happy I didn't lose myself into a process to find this piece of paper. I'm sure that it's wonderful for a lot of people. And I don't know if I have regret over it, but I don't think it would have made me happier.
Right. Yeah, I know the more I develop who I am, and I don't want to use the word manifest because to some people needs a translation or it's a trigger. The more I implement or grow or actually, find myself in this world comfortable and doing what I like to do, the more I understand what the value of a coach is.
The way I understood and the way I kind of framed it, I haven't seen someone that actually put it in these words. The way I understand manifestation is an actualization of desire. I really take it from Kesser to Malchus, from a place of Ratzon, and bringing it into a sense of fruition. And coaching is integral to actually moving that process along.
And then, like you said, a good therapist will have a good amount of aspects of coaching in their work at a certain point.
Not every coach is going to be able to explain to me why I keep on getting stuck. That's something that I think some people don't realize.
Yeah, and also I know that I'm surrounded in a coaching circle of people that are all have done and are very familiar with inner child work, with like how past affects the present and what inner part of me is still little, and therefore I act out in certain ways and do certain things. So my definition of life coach is also very relevant to the people I know. And I'm sure that I know in Israel they have coaches that are completely gym coaches just on progress.
Yes.
And there are business coaches which don't even relate to therapy. It's not even a question what's what.
I think it's also important to realize that not everybody wants to dig. Some people want to tell me what to do, tell me how to feel better, and let me how to get more productive, because I'm really looking for that end result, which is amazing.
Right.
We have this split that I think you and I are seeing, is that the people that wanted to dig, which we did for many, many, many years. I think this was one of the topics that we wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
People are digging, or people are, how do I just shift really, really quickly into the more positive ends of things.
Yeah. So this is something we really want to, actually, I want to ask you what you think. I want to talk about it. I would totally talk about this off camera and just schmooze about this. And if I bring on the topic, it's like what a workshop gives and does and what it actually does not do. And for years, my answer was, in order for me to feel connected to myself and live from my heart, right, and actually allow myself to be comfortable who I am, what I need is a workshop. I need to go back to a space. Okay, what's a workshop for those who don't know? What workshop am I talking about? Like, so much of our relationship and connection comes from that space. So I just refer to it as the workshop. A lot of people are familiar with other workshops, like what's the famous one that everyone knows?
Landmark.
Yeah, so people know workshops. But for people who don't know workshops,
I think Mishpacha magazine and like others technically, and when they would do studies on workshops, they would call it LGAT, large group awareness trainings.
Okay.
And I find it amazing because I've done large groups and I've done really, really small groups of late. But but it's spaces where people come to look at certain things in their lives. I could do a workshop on gardening, and we're going to be learning all about gardening.
Right.
I could do workshops on, I don't know, hypnosis and learn all about hypnosis, or breathwork and learn all about breathwork. The workshops that we would typically meet on are workshops that were designed to really take a honest look at yourself and see, how am I showing up in my life and how I may want to embrace a more optimum way of being.
Right. And the feeling Sunday, like after 3 days of exploring that, was a very connected, and we always talk about, do I miss the space, do I miss the workshop feeling? It's like I would feel on Sunday connected to others, normal, okay with who I am, understanding that I'm different and the same than others, and that learning about myself was super valuable in my life, to know these elements of myself, that I am, I'm just okay. I'm just normal. I'm just average. I'm just like, a struggle is not my own. And just these things that I learned. And that's what I've been going back to. And I thought for a while that the workshop is the only place to experience that, on, I guess, macro, like, and that dose of the feeling of thinking of myself and feeling okay and good and forward thinking and forward looking and optimistic. It seemed to me like, for many years, okay, that's the space to do it.
I think if I could put into words the workshops over time, and I'm really talking about the last 2 or 3 years when I say this, not the original, not the olden days, but at least definitely post-COVID. The workshops became really a place where people are looking to be themselves, and the spaces that we created, the intentional spaces that were created with the staff, with the organizers, with everybody, was a place where somebody could actually learn how to be themselves, and at least appreciate and look at the different parts of themselves that are not being expressed or not being breathed into, if you will. And for many people in the process of doing that, there's a lot of acknowledging. There's a lot of acknowledging the inauthenticity. There's acknowledging the trauma. There's acknowledging the stuff that are keeping me stuck. Ultimately, people are coming there because to unstuck themselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think the spaces allowed you to see your stuckness. And
Yeah.
the better you, particularly because you were really living this work on a day-to-day and integrating, and like we made so much of the principles of that space our lives. We brought
Yeah.
the micro into the macro. It started enhancing us. It started invigorating
And
us.
friendships like that. It's not just, oh, on a workshop I have people I'm honest with. It's like with my friends, it's like when they tell me, oh, how are you? I'm like, are you sure you want the answer? Because
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you the answer. But when I go into shul, I'm like, how are you? I'm good. Like
the workshop gave permission. It gave permission for us to be. It gave permission
for openness,
us to let go.
for honesty, and then with that, let go happens.
Yeah,
it's like always like how do I let go? I don't. I just allow it to just exist. And when it's ready to leave, it's referring to a feeling, a state of mind, a pattern, a dynamic in life, a relationship, a friendship, whatever needs to leave my life in order for me to live better. If I allow myself to express it and to share it and to even think about it and then to YouTube like tools and help on this, whatever I'm dealing with, if it's financial or relationships or whatever dynamic I'm finding myself that I want something to leave, if I can put words to it and connect in this place I am, it ends up leaving when it's ready to leave. And the workshop really allowed for that to happen, going to practice that, like in a framework of we're going to share stuff and it will. So I kept going back for that, and it took so many years to learn what it doesn't give. And it's almost like I didn't stop going because I'm like, oh, it's not giving me something. It's just like I couldn't go. COVID was one reason. Married, remarried, leaving often. And once I stopped going, I learned a whole bunch of things that the workshop did not give me when I found it in a different way, not in a macro way, not, oh my God, I'm like, not that amazingness, but just in a very grounded and simple and so I've learned things. So I'm really interested in hearing what you've learned and what your thoughts are, what a workshop does not give. Like, what doesn't it do?
One of the ways somebody who I met recently, a coach, a mentor, a consultant, put words to this is like the value of going off-site. Now, with his clients, he coaches them before, during, and afterwards.
Before, during, and after a workshop experience.
Yes.
Interesting.
So I think it's important to realize, and I knew it quite well, that the workshop was a peak experience because I kept on going, and I realized the things that I kept on getting snagged in. Specifically,
what does that mean? The things you kept on getting
snagged in, getting stuck in.
Stuck in on the workshop, or after?
After, before, during, and the workshop was great, but there are certain choices and there are certain things that only you are going to do when you decide to do them, or only I am going to do when I decide to do them. So the workshop was great for feeling the opportunity of unplugging and who am I really, but then how does that integrate into the life that I'm actually creating for myself?
Yeah. So feeling a certain peak and then going home and not, as soon as I leave the environment that creates the peak, I'm not only left with no peak, I'm also left with a complete none of that.
So there were relationships in my life that were really, really good and kept on getting better. And because they were relationships, and there were relationships with family, like sometimes we would go through our challenges. And over time, it really greatly improved because I decided that that's where I wanted to put focus in. That's where I wanted to have healing. When it came to other moves in my life, specifically around taking myself seriously, getting married, getting settled, being kinder to myself, treating myself with more a sense of worth, that wasn't always making it through because that was where I was on my journey. And it took time for me to actually implement the work that was actually really, really deeply personal. Like there's there's a line that, and it sounds better in Hebrew, but like, I'm good and valuable as I am. And that doesn't, you don't get a kinyan on that on a workshop. You don't own
because
that
it's
on a
given.
workshop.
It's given to me.
It's given, it's access. Like it tickles that thing. But then if I go home and I go back into my cave.
So the one line that the particular workshops we're talking about, which is JTH, and we're talking mostly about JTH, it really, really gave that. It really gave that I'm good enough the way I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay. And specifically my relationship with Hashem. Hashem doesn't look down at me. Hashem loves me. And I am learning that Hashem is the part in me that can forever love and be loved. And I guess it goes on every sphere. It's not only love. It's on love, and it's on compassion, and it's on strength, and it's power, and it's the ability. And the workshop really, really felt like it's giving it. And it's wild to think how little it actually gives on a little, like, without the space.
It's a dose of medicine, and then it's what I decide to go and do with the medicine. And then I think, if anything, and there are facilitators that said this, I'd rather you leave the workshop not on a high, but I'd rather leave, it was much more beautiful to me when somebody leaves the workshop with eyes open.
Yeah.
And that so many people of us are actually looking to get out of their own suffering or let the bad stop. And the pattern was, especially for the last year and a half of it, is that no, we are beings that can hold all of it.
Yeah.
And if I'm really embracing that in a space like that, where I can embrace and feel and hold the dichotomy inside of myself, the two opposing forces, and
I'm okay and I'm not okay.
I'm okay and that I'm not okay. Really own that nekudat bechira that I have inside of myself. That's when the real shifts outside of the workshop started happening. Right. The workshops really, people got caught up in the high, in the community, in the being together, and the possibility, but there wound up needing to be a really big deepening in the nekudat bechira that everybody was actually having, and that's what I found inside of myself. That's where a good coach would have came in. It's like, no, how do I keep on being the chooser? How do I keep on accessing that consciousness?
Yeah, how do I keep on actually feeling okay when I'm not in that space? Because what's the space worth if it doesn't give me the ability to be okay with myself outside of a space where I'm valid and I'm seen as, oh my God, you're so this and you're amazing, or you're like, I resonate with you.
But one thing I would say is that, especially in my own journey about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, I started really getting disciplined in hacking my own mind. And I'm not good at it. I'm not good at it or perfect at it at all, but I'm trying to make an effort. How do I come back to that nikudat bechira, that being that chooser, being that I? And from that place of I get to choose whether I'm good or not. I get to stop the spin. I get to not be that victim to circumstance. I don't think that any space that's out there really that I've seen drives that home all the time. Does not instill that level of responsibility in achrayas.
Yes, because it's sort of that's my issue. If I have an issue, which I do because I stopped going at one point before JTH stopped to host workshops. My issue for me was that I didn't know how to do this myself. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I could be told, go and be stronger or be stronger.
It's amazing because you were doing a lot of things on your own.
Yeah. But I kept relying on, I kept just looking forward for the next workshop. Not even consciously, but something in the back of my head, that muscle that it takes to be and people that have been to retreats know how this feels. It's like knowing that I will feel really, really good by the time I go home, and really looking forward to that experience where I'm going to get my fix or in tune, and I'll be good. And workshop friends would encourage me to be come on, do it, be yourself, do your own thing. It's very different when I kept going back than when I stopped.
So let me ask you a couple of leading questions. When you did your first workshop, you were divorced already?
I don't remember. I have to look at like divorce papers to see when it was signed, but it's somewhere around then.
Somewhere around there. By the time you were doing workshops, you were probably newly married or trying to get married.
When I was doing what?
Got back to JTH.
JTH, yeah. That was, I think my first workshop was right after our baby was born.
Oh, wow.
When me and Laylee had our first. I remember I called you. We spoke. I was
Correct.
in Chicago at the time.
I remember the email.
I said, yeah, and I mentioned that, yeah, so it's like 4 years. It feels longer. It's been a long 4 years.
It's been a very long 4 years.
It actually, the feeling of the last 4 years feels that it fills that gap, like it fills the gap of the other 8 that we didn't, like the 4 before that we didn't connect.
Correct.
So we were connected for a couple of years, then we weren't connected for another 4 or 5 years, and then we've been in touch.
And now we'll
since.
get off and get on, get off and get on, and I like it. It's
Yeah,
wonderful.
It's been the way, yeah. So yeah, I reconnected after I got married, or somewhere around then.
So I think it's a point because that space gives connection, and that connection is so other than, and it's so not what you usually expect, and so it's going to create that high. It's going to create that dopamine dump, if you will, on such a mass scale, and you're going to get work done on that dopamine dump. And then it's I don't know where else I'm going to get it other than that space.
In a healthy way.
And in a healthy way and in that space. So for me, I was hungry for it. I wanted it. I wanted it again and again and again. As much as I love the participants and working with people and connecting with them and really being with them in a process, I loved the staff. I loved the downtime. I loved the chill. I loved
that turned out to be a very valuable part of the workshop, was that I had friends.
Yeah.
Like I had friends where we can sip like wine after a long day and talk about just real things.
Correct.
And I think that what I found the last year is that I could have them in my day-to-day, and I do have them in my day-to-day. So not every day and not sipping wine, but I do have a good amount of people that I can send a voice note and check in for real. And they're not here to give me that rush, but in a very grounded and down-to-earth way, I know I'm heard.
So you're giving me an insight into myself, because I remember in the chauffeur days I was in yeshiva, and there was this distinct dichotomy between like people that knew the call, the chauffeur talk, and the inner work, and the therapies and all that, and then there was the regular people, the normies, the people that I was going to yeshiva with, and I got caught up in my identity, and I knew I was in both, but I one of them was tickling me a lot more than the other, and I would spend hours talking to specific people, and it was really wonderful. And it was really great, and I got to spend Shabbos with them, and I carried that over into JTH, the long drives.
Specific people from the workshop.
Yeah,
where you found them in your life as friends.
I found them in my life with friends. I mean, if you look at my wedding video, it was very interesting. It was very, very colorful, no pun intended.
Yeah.
But it was just this complete blend of humans, and it wasn't until I got outside of yeshiva, and I was like, okay, so I needed to figure out how do I work with that in my day-to-day, because my closest friend is probably in Muncie. So it evolved, and it evolved over time, and me learning how to have friends outside of the workshop and connection outside of the workshop and enjoy myself outside of the workshop.
Yes.
And then, yeah, I still miss it. I still like it. I still love that space, but it's not.
Yeah,
it's
we
not
have an
bringing it down to
unspoken argument about workshops. You noticed the last few times we spoke.
I don't know if it's that much of an argument, but go ahead.
We have an unspoken argument. I'm at a place where I don't even know if I'm right. Like, I don't even know that what I know is right, because my opinions on stuff like this is very relevant to where I am. And to say something about a workshop that's like could influence, now thinking of a camera and who can see it, like to say something, go to Landmark, go to Landmark. What I'm about to say has nothing to do with that decision, because it's very relevant to my own life, and that's what we're doing here. We're schmoozing on a camera. But what I have found is that there is a
For the record, you didn't go to a Landmark, right?
No.
I never went to a Landmark.
Okay, neither of us went to Landmark.
Neither of us went to Landmark.
Yeah, but Landmark managed to market themselves so well that we're marketing them right now.
Yeah.
But there are, it
was really helpful.
Plenty of good workshops out there if someone is looking for it. But what I've come to value and notice is that a workshop space, like a transformational, emotional transformational experience of any kind, which is the other topic I really want to talk about, is psychedelics.
Oh,
Any kind of
let's go.
yeah, any kind of space that gives that experience of self, and the way that these workshops and is not meant to help more than a certain wake up to what the world and God and Yiddishkeit or whatever it is like offers. It's one thing to think that I'm a lechelek elokayim amal and I'm part of the infinite and I have purpose, and it's a whole other thing to experience that feeling once, and specifically with other people, and watching other people give birth to themselves, like be born and feel like, okay, I'm really a part of God. And that said, I think that a workshop space, and keep going back to it, in a sense, can actually take me away from learning how to give this to myself in a very grounded, down to earth, day to day, just a way to function. And that's what I see a lot with psychedelics. Like,
so before we get to psychedelics, yes,
workshop.
In terms of the workshop, I think it's really important that the person that's organizing the workshop, that's seeing the workshop, realizes that what's actually happening could be just misconstrued as a vibe, as a chill, and I think that's what people really, really miss. Sometimes when they're missing the chill, they're missing the vibe, they're missing the ability,
Friends.
and the friends and the social, and not necessarily the work. And it's funny, I think a friend of mine, Adam Friedman, said this, like, you have to really be careful, especially in this workshop space, where it doesn't become that ego trip where you just get to use your ego to tell other people what's the dysfunction in their life.
Budich said this thing. Budich Klein said, before a workshop, the staff was standing in a circle. It was before Hanukkah, like we're now, and he said, "Ve'ein lanu rishis l'shtamish behem, haneres alonu koideshem." That touched me so deeply in regards to any kind of connection with another person that is ner, that is ar, that is lechtigkeit, that is pure.
Yes.
And I'm like, I can so easily like use it, but rather I'm a much better me if I watch it. Yes. If I just see them. And that allows me to see myself. I'm feeling that now. I remember that circle and how he said that, and that touched so it hit so well. And yeah, so a workshop could be that. Like, it's easy to use the ability of others' vulnerability for my own kick, which I think there's a difference if I know that I'm doing that or I don't. Like, I think for someone that innocently just does what he thinks is helpful is like, okay, cool, he's nice. But as soon as I notice that I'm doing that, that's when it's time for me to walk,
I think something that you and I would agree with is that we're constantly trying to look at ourselves, and realizing that I'm trying to really check myself and look at myself and see, where am I sticking my nose where it doesn't belong, and because if I do that, am I coming from an authentic place, a vulnerable place, or am I judging?
Yeah, I mean, the last half a year, like, our conversations have been a lot of really, really checking. I know in my life, I've been really checking myself. Why do I want what I want?
Mm-hmm.
How am I authentic with myself? Because it's so easy to fall to traps. And then it's, when they say in therapy that relationships follow just on different people.
Mm-hmm.
In therapy, like, if I'm lacking, I don't know, love or acceptance, let's say I'm lacking acceptance or a social being good enough among my peers and friends, and then I leave this circle in order to find it somewhere else, very likely I'll be in the same place over and over and over. And that's
Correct.
Like, for people that are immersed in this kind of like dialogue with themselves, this kind of self-work or therapy, are very familiar with this. And for people that are not, it's like a load of crap. Like, what do you mean I'm going from different people? I left them.
I think that the second you start claiming that you have it, or that you are the example of cleanliness, I think you've already lost.
Yes.
I think that there winds up being a particularly immense amount of shadow work and shadows we bring into this place. And if you're open to seeing your shadows, they will reveal themselves through and through. I try not to be afraid of my shadows. And when I'm afraid of my shadows,
Shadows
I
in
see them.
simple words is translation for chesroinus.
Yeah, I see my
Chesronot, like things that I'm just not doing from the best place.
So whether it's not being in my best place, or you're always going to see in a client, the way you're going to act with them or the way you're going to act with an issue that you're sensitive to is going to tell me a lot about how I'm relating to that issue.
Right. Yeah. So we're talking about workshops, and I guess we're talking a little bit about the shadow of a workshop, not only about if the workshop can give me that endurance and self-love that I feel on a workshop or in it. I think that goes also for coaching and therapy in a sense. Like there's a certain amount of work that is between me and me. Lev yodea marat nafsho. A person knows his own stuff. And if I'm willing to look in my own stuff and then add to it a supportive circle, I can go somewhere.
So I remember there was a choice that I made 3 or 4 years. It was actually a really, really important choice. I was scheduled to go to Israel for a workshop. It wasn't JTH, it was another organization. I was scheduled to go. I had actually, it wasn't Israel, I'm sorry, I wouldn't have canceled that. I canceled the workshop in Indiana, where I was slated to go and staff and help. And at the same time, there was a breathwork training that was going on in upstate New York. And I already committed, and I knew at that point it was a time that I wanted more. That workshop wasn't going to give me my next step. And I think...
Which workshop wouldn't? The breath work or the staffing?
The staffing that the workshop would not have given to me. I'd staffed easily enough workshops with that organization, enough workshops at my own organization, and I wanted something new that was going to bring me to a new step. And I think doing this work as we do it, we're going to continuously sharpen that ear to what am I doing in order to further my next step. What is the next life affirming step that I'm taking in order to ensure my own wellness?
Yeah, in order to ensure my own wellness, in order to manifest another of those. Okay, lately at home, I started writing up a translation between the words that are like all workshop healing kind to words that won't trigger my wife, Laylee, and the kids. So like manifest is one of the words.
You called it a glossary, no? It's a we need an inner work glossary.
Totally, because manifest is one word, and then integrate is okay in between, and then there's like implement. That's fair. Yeah, so I think that as a leader of any kind, it's very valuable for the leader to know when it's time to allow and to give permission in their own heads, and the value system of their organized structure is that it's time to go for people, and to really encourage them to carry on and really take off and really take the next step and constantly take the next step. It's because any kind of growth is part of, I think it's given. Meaning when I put in effort, like this podcast, like the effort I put in I feel is me. But the fact that we're sitting and talking and like we're in for a while and it's feeling calmer and I'm enjoying it more as the minutes go by, that's a gift. Right? So any kind of growth is to me part of the Ein Sof. It's like a godly given. And I think that like that's the whole practice of gratitude, right? I put in the effort, I put in the work, but the outcome, and like that's sort of, and my point with that is that it's endless. It's literally endless. I can always grow more and more and more and more. There's no limit to know how far I can go. And as a leader, I would hope that that's the leadership that's sort of that I'm led to. I'm led to know that I'm part of that.
Well, ultimately, you're looking to empower the participant to live their lives. So living my life is not going to be living my life on a workshop. Living my life is going to be living my life.
Yes.
Now, how do I know that I'm living my life or living the life that I want to live? Is I'm going to consistently and continuously want that feedback loop. Why do people love a workshop? Because on a workshop, they're going to get that feedback loop that what's going on makes sense. Ultimately, what I'm looking for in my life is for my relationships to reflect me in terms and see me as who I really want to be seen. And some relationships will see me also in the same ways that people don't want to be seen.
And then when that's capped at a certain amount, that's a problem.
So I
When
want
that's capped at a certain place,
correct.
that becomes an actual issue.
The workshop has a ceiling of that feedback loop. It will not give you everything. It does
Yes.
not give you the feedback loop that ultimately you're going to want to build inside of your own life.
Yes.
And then so
and I
you
think
could create
that
it for yourself.
Sorry.
No, not at all.
So yeah, I think 2.0.
You get all excited.
I think 2.0, or the next level of where the world has come to, is for workshops to actually include that, to really, but not in a way of like, we don't care, go, and not, oh, we do care, come, where it's really like loose and like it's like, come and join, go and do your thing, and it's so freeing. I think as a leader, like, so the workshop that I've been running, I don't think we spoke much about it
I want to
at
hear
all.
more.
But but the workshop that I've been hosting, I don't feel any limitation, not for myself, and not for anyone joining. I feel like I when I'm there, I experience a connection to this endless kind of potential that humans have, and we have proven to have insane amount of potential, like history, where the world is, technology, the fact that we're podcasting. This is insane what humans can actually achieve.
Humans or us?
Humans, us, and the world, like where things are going. And I actually really enjoy the space, because I don't feel that there is a roof over it. It's really, really open for people to really practice a way to connect to themselves and touch on the endless possibility life has, and it happens in every moment and every breath. Like I have, and it's a sense of well-being. I have endless okayness, even if I don't feel okay at this moment, and that is a practice for me.
It sounds, because what I'm hearing from you and everything about your program is that you're giving them a practice, you're giving them a process within, no pun intended, that they could actually go and use. And the workshop, or the 1-day workshop that you're offering, is how do I learn how to use this, work this, and implement this in my life as I'm going.
And we didn't even talk about my 1 day much.
But
you do that in conversation, where I don't need to like mansplain myself, and you somehow just know what's happening in my head, and I enjoy that a lot. It's a sense of it's a good feedback for me when I'm understood in that sense. So yeah, bringing it back to workshops, like the way we knew it, is like, it's really cool when things shift, as difficult as it is. Like I think like JTH sort of came to some kind of a change, and Chauffeur at one point came to a change, because each round of change, and I think that this conversation relates directly to a network of a few thousand people by now. So this is like a few thousand people that are like, okay, this ended, what next? Or and it also relates to people that haven't gone on a work. What does it mean to go to a workshop? It's really about learning parts of myself, and then when that's done, something else will come.
So I remember actually telling this to your mother-in-law, frankly, the first conversation I ever had with her in regards to JTH. She asked me, what is JTH? And the words that came to me, and I don't know where I pulled this out from, I wasn't trying to sound so woo-woo, was JTH is a current manifestation, current incarnation of the work that I'm doing down here. It was very clear to me from a young age that I meant to do my work, and when
do your work, you mean your work?
Do my own inner work,
void?
and then there is a specific point in my own journey where I need, want, desire to be the mashpia from that place of those who really want give, and to give from that place. And JTH is the vehicle of allowing people to be that lover, be that that giver, be that fighter for their life, be the liver of their life. And anything short of that is almost like a cop-out. Like, yes, we're meant to receive, and yes, we're meant to be loved, and yes, we're meant to be cared for, and hug ourselves and be that. But ultimately, we are living a life of mission. We are living a life of purpose. We are living a life where our voices are meant to be heard, and they're meant to be, something needs to happen. That
Rabbi
light
Jacobson
needs to be lit.
says something really nice that it's interesting. That specific time when I heard him say what I'm about to say, it was advertised on WhatsApp that he's going to be on some kind of a Zoom. I got on the Zoom, and I was on it for 3 minutes. I heard this point of his. It's about how to maintain well-being, and then I got busy and stuff, and I hung up. Those 3 minutes, I've repeated this so many times to so many people, and it's been so helpful for me in my life. And like, what are the odds that I get on for 3 minutes and I pick up one line?
With YY, that's generally how it works. He's
So
playing
he
on
said-
those frequencies.
Yes. So he said, someone asked the question, how do I maintain emotional well-being? And he said 3 things. One is have someone to talk to about anything. Doesn't mean that, okay, I'm adding my own words to it, just, to be so have someone to share anything. Doesn't mean I will share everything, but to know that there isn't anything that I need to stuff down. I could share anything, and there's plenty of things that I might want to utilize that someone or someone's, if it's friends, therapy, groups, workshops, whatever.
That place where I could share that vulnerability.
Where I could actually share. And I think that in this, okay, number 2, I'll come back to what I think. Number 2, he says inspiration, to keep constantly learn more. And I've noticed that people that are not willing to learn more, I feel around them shut down in a sense. Like I don't like argument, confrontation. Stam is not my comfort zone, but I'll do confrontation with people that are open-minded and they're willing to learn. So the willingness to learn, I think, is very, very a big part of my life. And it's somehow like when I don't know what to do. When I feel I'm at a dead end, that's when it's probably time to go learn something that I don't know yet. And the third thing he said, which is why I thought of this now, is the third thing that it takes to maintain well-being is to give, like to be a mashpia. So if I have the stuff that I need to clean out, which is 1, which is probably therapy, workshops, all that stuff is part of 1. And then goes 2, which is to learn new ways of thinking, new ideas about life, new ideas about Hashem. And it'll always come to, Viktor Frankl's work, logotherapy, which is to be a mashpia, because my wants, the stuff that I'm stuffing down, even if I share them, even if I'm seen, even if I'm loved the way I am, there's a certain loop that's going to keep happening unless I can actually go and share it, put it out there, help someone else feel normal in my experience. And Viktor Frankl puts it like, I don't remember his line. There's a very specific quote of his where he says like, the same pain, if it's going to be put to use for something valuable, it has a very different emotional experience.
Correct.
Which is what he did in the Holocaust. He imagined that he's a case study for his own work, and he was very curious to see how he's going to survive this type of environment, so he can actually go later and help people. And I think that I've done this in many occasions of my life since I've read that book. What's the book? Viktor Frankl's.
Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah, Man's Search for Meaning, which is a short book, and people who don't like to read, listen to it. It's a short listen, it's a short read. It's very, very big. It really, it changed the way I feel about stuff. And when I forget and I have nothing to hold on to, if I'm in a despair kind of feeling, if I only think that going through what I'm going through right now will have value, I don't even know how, it changes the experience. So think about things ending, like Shofar ended, and then came this beautiful thing, for a couple of years that it was so much like birth to so many people. There's so many coaches, therapists, breathwork facilitators, as a result of those few years. Other organizations that opened, and they're all doing, I hear, wonderful work. So if I can put in a downer or an ending to something for use for something that's going to happen next, then that gives a whole other feeling to the downer. Like, like if someone quits in a business and I'm, the person's devastated. If I lose money or I lose my job, or when things end, the question that I ask myself, is it really an ending, or is it the first step in something new?
Wow, there's so many things to say and unpack on that one.
Well, I'm talking about a bunch of things at the same time for you, for me. But
I think on one hand, just to go back to what Rabbi Jacobson said, that vulnerability, at least in terms of how I think I even wrote this down to talk about with you, that when it comes to vulnerability, it's not for everybody, but it's actually sharing that sense of uncertainty inside of you, that risk inside of you. It's an unstable feeling we get when we step out of your comfort zone or do something that focuses us to loosen control. Vulnerability is about sharing our feelings and our experiences with people who have earned the right to hear them. Being vulnerable takes courage, but it's not worth it. But it's worth it. It's worth to be ourselves to connect to others. So I think definitely the workshop There is definitely that vulnerability that comes with it. There's that inspiration that comes with it. You kind of
You're learning.
You clear some clouds in order to see your makif. Or if you break through a wall, you get to see a new makif of potentiality of, I could wind up moving into something else. And ultimately, it's not always going to happen on an intro workshop, but it's definitely going to happen after you get back home. I could learn those new doable habits of being that giver. Because if I'm still waiting to be filled, I'm not waiting to give. If I'm giving, waiting to be filled, am I really giving? As the Baal Shem would write, like your makabala menasla shpia. Part of being the masculine is that yes, it's not that I'm not feminine. Is that I've integrated my femininity where I know how to receive from the experience, and ultimately I have this
somewhere.
I have this ability to also be a mashpia. I'm not negating my femininity. I'm not negating my ability to receive or my rutzim to receive, but I'm saying yes, I'm receiving for myself, and I want to be that giver, and because that wholeness wants to be more whole.
Which goes back to the third thing that Jacobson said,
correct.
Right? Is like, so there's just so much of receiving that I really need, and then there's so much of giving that I actually need in order to integrate what I've received.
And I think that's something that I forget when it gets tough, when the spin gets too thick, if you will. We forget that we have assets, and that we still have things to be grateful for. I still have things that are meaningful and beautiful and careful in my life and sacred in my life. And there are things in my life that I could still give to. I'm never, ever, ever, ever stuck. And I think part of the illusion of perceived realities is that you're going to get stuck. There is no such thing as stuck.
That's the word by word what the Lubavitcher Rebbe said to someone. Someone came to him, Yehudis, Karbal, my grandmother, shared this with me a while ago when I told her I'm stuck. So she's like, the Rebbe told someone, "Was is stuck?" He looked and he goes, what do you mean, was it? I'm stuck. It's like, was it stuck? There's no such a thing. It's almost like, recently I heard something cool. It's like confusion is an easier feeling than what I'm actually dealing with. So I have two options, and now I say I'm procrastinating.
So many will say that confusion is not a feeling. Confusion is a state of mind.
Yeah. My go-to is I'm confused. I don't know if I should do this or not do this.
Yeah, because that's going to be a lot easier than making a decision.
Then actually both. Then not doing it creates a certain, I don't know, FOMO is the simplest way of saying, like, I'm missing out on something. So that's one feeling to stomach, like choice. And then saying yes to whatever I'm procrastinating over is a risk, an emotional risk. It might not work out. So confusion is just so much of an easier feeling. And maybe that's the same word goes with stuck.
So it's really interesting. I think you're going to resonate to this. Resonate for those, it just means feel with. A vibe. There was, I like your vibe.
So resonating.
If I had $1 for every time I said that word, I make a lot of money off that word. People make a lot of money off that word. Wow.
Resonance.
Baruch Hashem for words. So, going back to what we were saying about that impulse to want to go and attend a workshop, that back and forth feeling, that pull of I want to be there. It was always very clear to me that, there was FOMO that went into it for me. Recently, I was invited back to a workshop, and I didn't have that FOMO. It was really, really good, because I have something that's more of value than that space to me. So I finally really appreciate the amount of choice that comes into getting into those spaces. And I know the back and forth, the wanting to go, the not wanting to go, the wanting to go, not wanting to go. I think an element that I didn't experience before was there is something to stay home for. And I think for many people that feel that sense of FOMO, they're not always looking at the things that are home that are really mattering, that they rather be. I think it was an evolution for me over time where there was, and relationship is really what did it to me, was that there was something I'd rather be home for. And I think that's one of the most beautiful gifts that the workshop gave me, is that there is some place that I want to be more than just a workshop.
Yeah.
And And so I think that's really, really beautiful. I think that's going to segue into the psychedelic talk eventually, because one of the things I'll always hear from people, especially when it comes to psychedelics, is, but I really want to, but I really want to, but I really want to go and get that new, that new insight, that thing that I still am not seeing,
I really
to
want to
unstuck
unstuck myself.
I really want to unstuck
I really want to
myself.
unstuck myself, and some other being, which is whatever its name is somehow going to show me the way. It's going to show me and where to go, and it does show. But I think we can do the same conversation. What first of all, let's talk about which psychedelic we're talking about. Are we talking about, so I want to talk less about anything that's like lab pills.
Okay.
I'd rather talk about ayahuasca and shrooms. That distinction, those two are popular in the circles of people that might be watching this and the people that I know.
I think you'll also add MDMA to the mix. It is a pill, but I think the 3 or 4 that people are really focusing on is ayahuasca, psilocybin, MDMA, and ketamine. People are really really working with ketamine.
Yeah.
People are still, once they came out with the DMT pens, people have been like,
they've been doing like 5-minute, 2-minute trips or 10-minute trips.
It could be 5 or 10-minute trips,
and they get like a poof, and then it takes, someone explained to me that it's been a month and he's still working on it.
Yeah, DMT is very, 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 very powerful, and when done, period, it's going to take time to integrate. It's not going to be the most pleasant come downs.
Yeah, and the gap is far from reality and life and what it looks like on a day-to-day into what the experience is, which is really which is really the blessing and the curse of altered spaces and of like psychedelics, is because it is different than day-to-day, which is really helpful to leave my day-to-day way of thinking and maybe find a new way of thinking. But what's not helpful is that it's so far away. So what's the value, and which psychedelic are you talking about when you talk about it?
Okay, so I'm gonna say it like this. I'm not saying this is the only way to say it, but I heard this put very, very wisely, and the person that's going to hear it will understand and smile to themselves. You take medicine when you're sick, or you take medicine when you're trying to promote a sense of wellness. That said, it's not for everybody. That said, it's not going to be a value for everyone, even if that person is taking it. It's a wonderful tool. Like everything in life, it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful tool. And it's an extremely powerful tool. And it could be used very, very sacredly. And it could also be very much used to spiritual bypass, to kind of make a new warped
That's
reality.
a word that didn't come up till now. Spiritual bypass. What that means is that I can use spirituality to bypass my work. Correct. My actual avoid on a day-to-day.
Correct.
Oh, I heard this recently from a mentor. He said, the way to do what we need to do in life, like this whole spirituality versus reality, he said, it's like chop wood, get enlightened, and then go chop wood.
Yes.
And spiritual bypass is the not willingness to go chop wood again. It's and it ends up confusing. And because I think confusion is always avoidance, it ends up confusing my day-to-day, my reality. Wait, what am I doing? Why am I in this marriage? Why am I in this job? Why am I in this life? Look, if I can dance for 12 hours and feel connected to a group of people, like, what am I even doing outside of that?
So spiritual bypassing was coined by somebody named John Wellwood. And I got this in February. And I just want to read it. Spiritual bypassing is a term I coined to describe a process I saw happening in the Buddhist community I was in, and also in myself. Although most of us were sincerely trying to work on ourselves, I noticed a widespread tendency to use spiritual ideas and practices to sidestep or avoid facing unresolved emotional issues, psychological wounds, and unfinished developmental tasks.
Thank you. We can erase everything we recorded till now and start with this.
If you just came to hear this, Diana. So I think they're such a vast topic. Because am I speaking about myself? Am I speaking to other people? Am I speaking to you? So I think
we're talking about me and you and our personal lives, and with a clear disclaimer that it's not a medical guidance. It's almost like I almost want to talk more about the caution that's needed from our own growth and hurt, rather than the everyone is into like promoting. I read what's his name, Will Smith. Okay, now Will Smith's not a thing, but maybe he's coming back, I don't know. But a while back, like his big finale on his book, I don't know if you listened to it, it's a wonderful book, and his big finale was 15 ceremonies of ayahuasca, and that's like his journey led, and that's like the grand finale to his process of loving himself. So it's like it's very promoted everywhere, and I think that it's really valuable to understand what it's not.
So what it is not a fix. It is a wonderful opportunity to connect and commune with yourself, and also with the things that are not yourself. So for some people, it's brutal. For some people, it's amazing and blissful. For many and most of the people, it's a night of somewhere in between.
So you're talking about ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca specifically. Ayahuasca it's kind of like turning the water main on and trying to fill up a cup sometimes from the water main. So if you're not coming in with the proper kalim, it's going to blast you. And the most common question I would get after an ayahuasca ceremony from people is, well, is what I'm seeing real? And the answer is I don't know. I don't know if it's real, but if it's real to you, then it's real to you. I think many people think that ayahuasca has answers. I think what ayahuasca does for many people is start to realizing that you are always have the answers to whatever question you have. I know many people that are rather awake in their lives have done ayahuasca and are stone sober for most of the ceremony, because they're walking around with the sense of awakeness, and they're walking around with the sense
openness and willingness to look at their life. So
yes,
the psychedelic is going to help them clarify rather than open up.
Now, is there cleansing? Do you get insights? Do you see? Yes, but it's definitely not the whole bowl of wax. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, both in that space, before that space, and after that space. I think that's something that Dr. Gabor Mate was really into. It's definitely not for everybody. There's a lot of halachic shaylas that come with it. I have yet to meet someone that serves ayahuasca and is in that world that is the most healthiest, well-integrated person that I would want to have as a mashpia in my life.
Yeah, so
I think they carry medicine, but it's not it.
Yes, and so the question that people have a lot for me lately, and I'm pretty sure for you too, should I go or should I not? And
I think the answer is always going to be, well, what are you looking for? What are you searching for? I remember there was a ceremony on Hanukkah once, and there was this 18-year-old kid. I happened to have known him, and I'm like, so what are you looking for? It's like, oh, I'm looking to chill. And there was like no vetting process, no intake form, no whatever.
I think you mentioned this to me a few weeks ago, that we're in the beginning of a certain wave, and therefore it's so not clear yet.
It's so not clear.
Who, when, how much, and when people ask me should I go, my answer to them is, it's first of all, it's a question of, I have it written down somewhere. I want to pull this piece of paper, but it's really the first real question is with whom? Who is really hosting it? Who is running it? Who is like, because holding space is it's a real thing when it comes to work like that. Like when the brain goes through such waves of intense emotional and psychological downloads and processing and feelings. Yes, it's really important what expectations is set for myself after. How often is the second thing that I always tell people. It's almost like with whom, how often, and the third thing that I like to tell people, and that's what I've told myself for years when I said no. I didn't tell you that I've done a psychedelic experience.
What did you do?
I have. I did San Pedro.
Oh wow!
It was really, really nice. And and what you described about not having a very clear experience was mine. And I've learned a lot about myself, about life, and it's probably why I'm podcasting right now, thanks to that clarity of understanding where I need to go and to stop avoiding my own reality because of fear.
You're definitely going to start getting clear where you are in your own way. It's not going to get you out of your own way.
No, I need to just put in the work, which is what this entire, if I don't know yet the topic of this thing, but this is definitely the theme of the conversation we're having, is like, how do I get out of my own way? And there's almost no answer. It's just knowing what is not going to help. Like
trial and error.
Yeah. It's like, okay, alcohol is not going to do it. I learned that many years ago. Workshops is going to give me a lot of insight, and it gave me access to so much friendship and support. And the next thing on the table, okay, will psychedelics get me out of my own way? So, will it take my pain away? And yeah.
So I'm coming back from where you're going, but I could firmly say it's not. It's going to really potentially open you up, and that's why the who you're sitting with is integral.
Yeah.
It's an extremely vulnerable experience. You are accessing realms inside of your own consciousness that you do not normally access. That said, and because you don't do that, it is extremely vulnerable, and the makif that holds that vulnerability is going to matter. And any stink that creates that circle is going to going to be a part of that experience.
Which is why I've said no for so many years. Can you just move this a little closer? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is why I've said no. From the first thought I had during my experience was, I'm so grateful I've said no till now.
So there was a person that's actually very, very deep into that, into ayahuasca circles these days, and he'll probably stay there for a minute, as long as he's going to stay there. He asked me his first time, should I go? And I've got this question many times, and the answer I usually say is, I do not like getting in between somebody and the medicine. It's kind of my respect to their process, and my respect to that space. I told him that give it 6 months of breathwork before he goes.
Yes.
And this was years ago.
Yeah. So part of like the holding, who is holding me inside an experience, a ceremony, is me.
Correct.
So if I show, medicine by definition is to treat something that's sick.
Correct.
Given the dynamic, there's a lot more parts to the medicine than the medicine. Like the ceremony isn't all that's playing a part.
Yes.
It's me that's showing up to it that's playing a part, and anything that feels like a fix is not going to work.
So so Maestro Manuel Rufino would usually say the real ceremony is after the ceremony.
Yes.
And I think one thing that the medicine has showed me over the years, and I'm conscious about who's going to wind up hearing this, but hey, I'm here. Hi, good morning. Is that the point of the ceremony is not the ceremony. The point of the workshop is not the workshop. The point of the medicine is for you to live your life and to make the moves that you're not making, and be loving and be compassionate.
Yes.
And it's interesting. I've spoken to many people over the last 6 months, and specifically about values. And I think psychedelics are going to show you, not necessarily going to show you it's going to show you what you already know. Lahavdil, what the Ramchal is going to say, Mesilas Yesharim, and I'm not going to tell you anything new, but these are the values that you're going to wind up constructing your life around. This is what draws you back from it. This is what you got to do, and now go live.
Yeah.
And that said, many people who are carrying guilt, who are carrying shame, who don't really know how to pierce that glass ceiling, have found psychedelic work extremely beautifully healing. And I think the more healing you have found it is probably going to dictate how fast you're going to run back. And the work that you do in between is going to dictate how fast you're willing to come back, as well as who's giving in that space.
And the rule that I've received is like spreading it out is so important. And the leaders that I know in this work, like, they don't let anyone back before 4 to 6 months.
Correct.
Like, serious. And this going every month Shabbos, like in order to function Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and it wears off by Wednesday, like
it's not, you're living in that, it's
like
you got to get really clear on what realm you're living in then.
yeah.
I think I'm not going to
It's-
say it's good or bad. Good and bad is kind of a judgment, but you're going to have to be really realistic, real, and honest.
All right, but we're not
about what
talking for
realm you're
people that
talking
are
about.
finding themselves and that's where they're at. No judgment. I love, like, a lot of people that do that. I love them dearly and they're good friends. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about people that are asking the question, should I go or should I not? That's where these points come in. Should I go or should I not? Right people.
So it also depends on your context with this person. I've met people that the first time they're meeting me on an intake call, they want to work on their anxiety or they want to work on their depression, and they're talking about breath work, or the breath work that it takes is like, okay, so you think I should take shrooms? I was like, no.
Right.
No.
Right. So there is a yes or no that's worth to be said, and there's
no, I don't think so. I'm like, you could do whatever you want.
Yes.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
That if you're just knocking on the door and then want to take a battering ram to it, no, knock again.
Yeah.
Knock again and then knock again, and then maybe something's going to answer.
Chop wood. Chop wood. Being able to accomplish a life that feels, I'm an empath and I'm surrounded with a lot of empaths, so the word wholehearted makes sense. A life that feels wholehearted and okay and not constantly anxiety driven and with good connection will take a lot of chopping wood. And although psychedelics have an aspect of chopping wood because there's so much, it's so difficult for many and it takes a toll on the physical body. That's the entrance fee to the experience itself. It's not the entrance to what it takes to chop wood on day to day.
I think it bears mentioning, and I'll speak this as a vet in that realm. For many years, it can fool you.
Yes.
It can fool you, and you will be married to a perception, no pun intended, that you will find in that space. And you can convince yourself and become codependent or narcissistically codependent. Yes, I'm saying those words because, once you're opening it, you have to open it to versions of seeing yourself. And it's very dangerous. Yeah. It's very, very dangerous.
It's very dangerous to my actual potential too. Besides for the messes that it can create in marriage and in life, like if the ultimate is me living my potential, the danger is to that.
When I took someone that I know, and I'll keep this someone that I know, I came to a ceremony once, and they went, and the second they ingested, they're like, not for me. Went to go throw it up. And I wasn't really judgmental of it, but I asked them why. And they told me, it's like, I do not want this to paint the rest of my experience of life, period. When anybody who will tell you that there is life before shrooms and then there's life after shrooms. There's before ayahuasca and then there's after ayahuasca. Not that ayahuasca is it at all. It's not. But there will always be a stroke, a roshem from those experiences, because it's in that space you're becoming intimate with yourself by way of a substance. That is what is going on, and it's giving you this perceived.
So what I hear you say is that it's extremely valuable that even if someone hasn't done this yet and they're considering, they should first keep knocking on the door and notice why they want it, what are they lacking, become familiar with the world of void. So
do you have integration in place? And if you want to go and have a night, gesundheit. I've never taken shrooms. I never went to go trip shrooms. I didn't go to concerts as a kid. I never dropped acid for fun. It wasn't me. It's if you ask my wife, they're like, "Oh, you just like doing drugs." I'm like, I tried to be very contextual and tried to work with facilitators and be facilitated and do work while I was in those spaces. You need kalim, you need integration, you need journaling, you need to. There are literally courses for this. It's funny. I recently spoke with someone who's taking a course in psychedelic integration, then had their first trip recently. Like, it's kind of interesting to me. You're not tripping before taking a course, but okay, to each their own. And they called me a week and a half afterwards. They're like, no, I need a session. I need to integrate that. Like, there's something that was stuck. And this famous fear of like, I feel like I scratched my disc. You did. there's nothing, again, there's nothing wrong with you, but what needs to happen is that there are cycles that need to finish.
Right. If the goal is to live authentically and to live fully and to give this world all I got and myself the best chance of living a Geula kind life, a life of leaving my constrictions and really impacting the world with love and with wisdom and with opportunity and with hope, it's gonna have to take a lot more than one night of, oh my God, I'm blissed out for one night, or I relieve. And I think that this conversation is not talking at all about when it's intentional psychedelics with a practitioner, a therapist, or psychiatrist. I'm talking about the way we know it in our circles. I'm not talking about a center where there's PTSD, and I'm not talking about that at all, because they create all that. I'm talking about for people that don't know how to.
So I think one thing that's coming to mind, and I spoke to a Dayan recently about this, who's spoken to enough people on it. I don't think he's ever experienced it himself, although he didn't share it with me.
Who knows?
Who knows? He definitely has a psychedelic mind. That there winds up being this almost acceptance of a lazy attitude, almost like an atzlus that comes after in those spaces, because I've been able to let go of a lot of stuff or a lot of baggage in those spaces and kind of wake up. There almost starts to be this lack, this levity and almost like laxness that winds up coming in their day to day.
Right.
Where if I'm okay and I'm loved and everything is love and everything is love and everything is love, then okay, do I actually need to get up in the morning? Now, many people do, and then there are some people, Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is everywhere, and Hashem loves me, and I'm one with the universe. Yeah. So it's like, let's just chill and let's pray.
Right. And for that to not happen, there's certain things, kalim, and vessels, and practices, and processes that are needed. Mm-hmm. And in my experience, the experience is very different than what I've heard from others. My experience was very different. And that's as a result of waiting. And of waiting for my body to be ready, for feeling that it's not a forced thing. No one pushed me or pitched me or needed, you need to. No. You always said that after a workshop. No one needs to do this workshop.
Yeah.
And it's so true. No one needs to anything. It's like if the purpose is healing, then heal. Like, no, as soon as I'm needing to anything, it goes against what I'm after. Like,
so I think it was definitely after this COVID did a lot to a lot of people. One of the things that it did is it kind of, and I said this a lot in the Vessel of Truth course, it tightened this mirror cage that we're all in. It's not my term. Gil Swan, who you don't particularly like, said this once, but it's like we're all living in this.
Well, you didn't watch
cage.
The documentary.
Not yet.
As soon as you watch the documentary, it will be like
things to watch.
Don't. We've agreed on not watching it.
So it chokes this glass cage that we live in, and it needed to break, and one of the ways it broke was with psychedelics, and it became all the craze specifically in the frum communities. And then this one wants to talk about it, and that one wants to talk about it, and like, oh, this one needs it, or this one that needs it. And what I found, again, maybe because I've been in it as long as I've been in it, it's like, no, this doesn't necessarily have to happen yet. And at the same time, if it's happening, it's happening. I think Moe Srour said this, and like, somebody's got to do it. So at least somebody is taking. At least there are spaces that people can find what they want or what they need, and it's not for me to call it dysfunctional or not dysfunctional.
Again, right? We're totally not talking about the people that are in it. We're not judging our friends. I'm not like at all talking about that. Yeah, and that's not the purpose of this conversation. The purpose of this conversation is when someone asks the question, should I? Like I've asked myself, should I? Like you're asking yourself, like in our conversation the last half a year on certain things, should I and should I not? This is like more like what I'm trying to talk about, or people that are in it and it's not enough.
I think this was in the like nonviolent communication book. It's like, I'm looking for the next life affirming choice, and many stories could dictate what's life affirming for me, or I could keep on relating to reality, relating to myself in kindness, in love. In relationship to God or higher power, call it whatever you will, is this good for me?
Yeah.
Is this me?
And if I don't even know the answer to that, then it's probably not time yet. If
I
I
would
don't know
agree.
the answer, if this is something I should do or not, I need someone to tell me. Then it's probably not time yet.
And
That's
then
just a hunch,
you know what?
a
And
little
it's
hunch.
interesting because in the same breath, I could say the people that make it to a breathwork group. There are many people that don't want to come because they know that when they step into that space, they're going to have a breathwork experience, which is going to be very reminiscent to psychedelic experiences. I just had some guy with me. It was adorable. He was this big guy, 32, addict, been to rehab, did all that, but he was one of these really extroverted fat guys, recovering addicts with a like he was really
Full.
adorable. He's like he was really full. That is such a good word for him. He was like, dude, I did ayahuasca, but this breathwork thing that you're putting me through is something else.
Yeah.
Because you're not relying on a substance.
Any kind of breathwork practice is probably a really, really good integrating tool.
Yes.
Really good, specifically the people that hold space for the breathwork experience, either in one-on-one or in group, know what I have been through in my peak experience. Mm-hmm. So if they hold space for my breathwork and for the session, and then it actually is a very useful tool to integrate and to bring it into mamashes, into day-to-day, into practice.
It's going to be that idea of choice, the choice to breathe, the choice to, I choose to breathe, I choose to go through this process, I choose to breathe in a circle, yes. I choose to breathe through my mouth, I choose to make a sound, I choose to move. I'm sure someone could touch that and hold that and embrace that in a psychedelic experience, own that and orient themselves to that. And that's going to be really working in conjunction with a substance. One of the most beautiful things about the presence process,
yes,
which is an amazing book, an amazing process, and painful for a lot of people that wind up going through it, is how do I just really rely on myself and my own sense of presence and relationship to myself. And breathwork is that place where you're working with you.
Yes.
And
where I'm literally integrating. I'm practicing integration by consciously choosing to breathe.
I think that's one of the spaces that I think I love most about this work.
Yeah.
Is that breathwork space. It's been with me since the first time I did shofar, and since really, I don't know about day 1, but day 2 or day 3 of it.
Yeah.
And working with it and being a student of it, and I'm extremely, extremely, extremely grateful to breathwork for it. And then I'm smiling to myself because I can see, I can see how it's evolving and emerging, and it's quite astounding actually.
Yeah,
leave it to Jews to make money from people breathing. I mean, it's
it's like, is it dangerous to breathe? I think it's dangerous to not breathe. But there is exceptions to this. There is certain conditions where deep breathing can actually be dangerous. But again, disclaimer moment. But for a regular healthy body, it's like breath work is not dangerous. The opposite. It's an entrance and a gateway to so many things.
Because I'm really looking at how I'm orienting to reality, which I think is the goal of the work. The goal of the work is really who is driving your bus, who is the I, who are you, and sometimes who you are is the one that's asking the question. And so how do I really deepen my relationship with that Nikudata Bechira that I have inside of me? Yeah,
with I, or whatever that is, and learning that and spending time on that. Yes.
And it gives me a freedom to choose. Many of us grew up in a system where God wasn't I almost want to say it facetiously, God wasn't a choice, and don't make God lose out from you not being able to choose him. And I think doing this work has really allowed people
to... It is so wonderful to be Orthodox Jewish after, what is it, for me, 13, 14 years with therapy, probably 14 years of therapy and self-work. It's such a different Yiddishkeit.
Yeah,
it's a different everything, my life then and now. But there is shadows and parts that are showing up. I think parts that are the same.
I got to give Journey to Home credit for this. It was really it wasn't being exposed to Chabad that made me, I think, more Jewish. It was actually the Hamish community in Monsey and the real Hasidim yes, Chabad, you're Hasidic too, but the real Hasidim that kind of opened my
And now
my
you're
eyes up.
practicing Chabad, like you're learning daily Chabad learnings through the Hasidim. And I'm not sure they're going to be very proud of that.
No, I learned Chabad, I learned my Shiloach, I learned Moe Srour, I learned Rabbi Nachman. Like Baruch Hashem, I've covered my
You're
bases.
No, your status you've been posting, what is that, Yom Yom?
The Hayom Yom,
Yeah.
I got into
But
this
through Hasidim, that's the Mashiach's times, where you come to a Yom Yom through 4 years of exposure to good food.
You know what? Simcha said this. Simcha said this years ago. He said this while Shofar was getting taken down. He was like, nobody has a monopoly over Judaism, and emes is emes. So Hayom Yom is a channel, and I think what I try to be is be open to whatever channel is coming through now. It could be coming through the Moe Srour, it could be coming through the Ramchal. Yes, do I enjoy stuff better than others? Yes.
Yeah, and
yes.
also we shift and we move, and we'll invite different things at different parts and times in our life. Yes.
And because I want this clear, especially when we're talking about this inner work. Who you work with matters, and how they perceive the world matters. If you are going to make yourself a kibul to somebody, if you want to be a makabel from somebody, you have to be really clear on the giver and what you're looking to be filled with. So I know, I'm not saying I'm definitely not the authority, but it's different. It's different when the person that you're talking about is Yirat Shamayim, has Torah on his side, and he's not using it to contort or push an agenda. But
we're talking about emes. If we're seeking emes, we surround ourselves with emes, and the real the thing with emes is that it's one. And if we have two opposite opinions, how could we be both emes? But there is a part behind the opinion that is emes.
So
there's something within, like there's a common finding that is emes, and I think
so. One of the things I learned with Baruch, and it's a mimer from Hypno-Therapist on Rosh Hashanah, where he speaks about. Can I go into the whole Dvar Torah thing? I guess
we're gonna end with that.
We're gonna end with it because I also have Torah in it, right? So Yidden, we have this. We say in davening Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, Ki ata Hashem Elokim emes. Now, why on Rosh Hashanah and Kippur do I talk about emes so much? Why am I qualifying emes on Rosh Hashanah and Kippur? Usually there's two ways to relate to emes. Either A, I'm relating on one level of emes and sheker. That's not the emes that we're talking
about. Meaning emes versus sheker.
Emes versus sheker is a realm of duality. That's not what we're talking about Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. We're talking about echad emes. The emes
that all of it includes the
sheker. The real emes is that bilti tlos. The real emes is that there is only one God, and we're all finding our own ways to that God. And so Tali Bein of the emes is let me find my way to my own oneness. So I trust your relationship to that emes, and I think you trust my relationship to that emes, and the colors that you use in order to find your way back home are different than my colors that I find that I find my way back home. Like I'm going to I'm going to Flatbush, you're going to Jersey, but we're still part of that same circle.
Yeah. And I think if a person has a sense of their emes, it's good to surround themselves. It's good when I surround myself with the emes that's building me. Yes. So, and when no force, it's like, oh, do I need to go to that? Do I not go to that? What feeds my best version of myself, which is my ultimate emes? And it doesn't mean that something else is bad, or that's why I'm not talking about friends.
So how do I know if something's emes or not?
If I don't know, means I need to keep chopping wood and not.
So give me a way. You chop wood. Know. Give me 2 ways you chop wood.
2 ways I chop wood. As a tool, or what? Okay, so if I don't know something, when I'm in procrastination, for starters, I allow myself to be in that place. That's what I've really been up to lately. Is allowing myself, for starters, to not resolve it prematurely or dumbly. And I've learned lately that the value of asking the question is so much more than answering it, because the answer for whatever debate or doubt I'm having is going to change based on circumstances.
So you spend time asking, is this emes? or
No,
what's the question?
I'm gonna spend time asking myself, like I have with psychedelics for years on a big, like this is, we're talking about this. So
It's a
like
lot
I've
of
been
patience
asking,
in that.
yeah, I've asked myself for years, should I not? And I've developed the ability to not resolve it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer was no. That's,
Mm-hmm.
by the way, that's the answer and the ability to stay with a question. So on a day to day, when I don't know something, or I don't know if to go to somewhere or do something or not do something, like heck, this thing, am I going to post it? Are we going to release it or not? That's going to be a
I
question.
have no idea.
Like this is a question, and for starters, the fact that I can ask the question is something that I find is a very valuable emotional development, to sit and ask instead of resolving. It's a yes, it's a no, it's a what, like. So that's one piece of my own work, is to sit with questions long enough and to notice the feelings behind it, the triggers behind it. Any part that I can do myself, I will. And very often I'll get my answer by just having the ability to sit, which is my definition of meditation. That's what I'm doing at that workshop a lot, is like my definition of meditating is to allow myself to just become aware of what's happening. And the second part that's extremely valuable in my life is good connection, is to reach out. And people that I reach out to that end up, I feel more confused, it's nothing against them. Only my lowest side would judge them. But in a functional, practical, I have a family, I have work, I have a job, I have a life, I have to do things in my life. I'll surround myself with people and that help me clarify whatever I need to clear up.
So you will rub that question of, is this MS or is this MS for me right now, around other people that value your sense of MS.
Yeah. And sometimes by just sharing, that's what I've noticed lately, things will clear up. As soon as I share in the way that they hear, there's so much that happens that I don't know about. I know that science has a bunch of data now on what happens in human connection and how that works. There's so much like it's actual black and white these days, so much of it. But unrelated to the science, there's so much that happens in the act of being vulnerable. Brene Brown's work. So as soon as if I can sit with a question and then I share it from a place of like, this is my support and I value the sharing, that's half. And then I'm blessed to have smart people in my life. They have good points. They make a good point.
You make sense.
You make sense. When they say no to something, what I hear you say is that you don't really want to do it. I'm like, yeah, you're right. No, you said that. I'm like, I said that? Yeah, you're just doubting yourself. I'm like, that's valuable friendship.
Yeah.
If it's coaches or therapists or friends,
they see the MS that's hiding behind that doubt that you're trying to put in front of it.
And they can't reflect that to me if I'm not willing to look at the doubt even. So the first part for me has been really to look at doubt, at questions, and noticing that an answer is just applies for as long as it applies, and then dynamics change and circumstances change, so the answer might be different.
So right? I think so. I really appreciate what you're saying.
What's year two?
So of late, and it's funny because some decisions are, do we want to eat home or do we want to eat, go out?
Totally. What do you want to do for Shabbos?
Which is annoying. And I don't know if I've spoken to you about this. Maybe we have. It drives me up a wall.
Yeah, we have this every week.
These small decisions.
Oh my God, we were invited this Shabbos. Now it's Thursday. I'm invited this Shabbos. Layli texted me the other day. We're invited for lunch. Check. Dude, it took 2 hours to get to schmoozing to where we wanted to get.
It happens when it happens. So what I do in order to check whether it's MS, I learned to ask my wife, and I think really because that I want to be the truest me, the most MSdic that I want to be, or at least have the space where that could come out, is with her. So I want to ask her to see, like, whatever I'm going to choose, is this going to find a sense of alignment with her? Now, obviously, there would be things I won't need to ask her, but like, I'm going to want to bounce it off, specifically when it comes to Shabbos, because I don't want to make the decision. Yeah, it doesn't really happen because she just ping-pongs it back to me. But now that I have checked that box, I sit in the question, and sometimes I see it. I see myself not wanting to make the decisions. Like, once you make the decision, it's going to feel better. Yeah. So I either A, I make the decision. B, I give it some time. I give it some patience. I let myself not stress or dwell in it, and I let the universe. I let reality. I let the reality show itself to me. Yeah. It's like, okay, where is the energy it's going to show? Give me a sign, then give me a sign, and then it will give me a sign, sign.
And
And
just
then
feeling into to what happens the next moment and what happens the next moment.
and then it's like very clear. Then it was like very, very, very clear. Like, wow.
Why do I think we're
Baruch
not?
Hashem, I did
Why
it.
do I think we're not talking about Shabbos and where to eat
Would you-
anymore?
I mean that was
Yeah.
it. That was it too.
That's chopping wood. Chopping wood means that how do I relate to small decisions? Who is around me?
So
Who am I
I'm-
inviting?
So
Am
am I
I
putting in the
going-
time? Am I putting in the
Yeah.
space to actually be warmed by that fire that I want to build? That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing, and so I'm gonna keep on asking the question: is this emes for me? And my ego is gonna get entrenched in it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna want to be perceived a certain way, and it's going to get in, and the shadows are going to come, and then the people are going to see me, and then it's going to poke, and I'm going to feel, and then I ask the friend, and
Right.
I give space for that doubt that winds
Right.
up building up, because if you're not careful, the indecision is going to give you a buildup of doubt that you're going to have to take care of.
Yeah, which is referred to as procrastination, because it becomes a place to live in. So when I'm talking about staying with the question, I'm not referring to procrastination. It's actually to staying with the aspects in me or the emotions that this brings up. I'm not referring to living in procrastination, but rather not looking as procrastination. Oh, I'm procrastinating and I can't decide. But really looking at, there's emotions around decision.
It's funny.
And I'm okay to feel it.
The line that I keep on saying, I think I've said this, like I'm paying the price of the choices that I didn't make. And it's funny, somebody mirrored it back. It's like, oh no, you're paying the consequences of the choices you made. I'm like, no. I'm paying also the prices of the choices.
Which is an
that I didn't
existential
make.
trip if you start thinking about it from a macro place. It's a
Have we
real,
spoken?
yeah, it's a real existential trip. Yeah, right. And yeah. So
And I think-
what if you have to sum up two? Like, what's your two ways of finding your emes and making decisions or living?
So, and asking my wife and giving it space.
Nice.
Or asking a really, really good friend and giving it space. And that doesn't mean that I don't stress over it. That doesn't mean that I don't get engrossed in, is it the right thing to do? And what I learned fairly recently, about 3.5 months ago, was right and wrong is a judgment. And the question is always going to be, is this the next life-affirming choice for me? Is this the next practical choice for me, for my family?
Right. Does it build or does it break? Does it build? Does it create more of what needs to happen in my life, or doesn't it?
Is this in alignment with my values?
Yeah.
And many people say, my value is MS. I'm like, is your value MS, or is it your value your own version of MS?
A friend I have from a training that I took years ago. My first training was Martha Beck's life coach training. It was a 14-month beautiful program. So I made some really good friends there. She said something really cool. She said that there are two truths. There are big truths and little truths. She said big truths, like don't kill, doesn't change under no circumstance.
True.
Then little truths, those change all the time. It's our job to keep changing them. I loved that. Like coming from where I'm coming from, and that everything is a big truth, which creates so much dysfunction in my life.
Because people want to hide behind an objective truth.
Yes, because it's easier than feeling the doubt. That's the kind of feeling the question I'm referring to. I'm not referring to, I'm procrastinating. Now let me build into an identity of procrastination. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about feeling the feelings that procrastination helps me avoid.
So we actually spoke about this last week, and I know you want to wrap up, but this is like a whole segment of being on the edge of that doubt, where it's like, I think you and I have two very, very different and complementary ways of how do we deal with that edge of that doubt. And I think it's where I'm the oldest, you're not the oldest, or the way we were raised. There's so much to be
your
said.
response to life when things are like coming at you is very different than mine, I think.
Yeah.
Or used to be very different. And maybe we're like meeting somewhere.
I think my hope is that we're more congruent now, because, or at least my hope is that I'm more congruent with who I really want to be and the way I deal with it these days. I had a question that I wrote down, and this maybe will really end. Like, are we doing better than 6 months ago, than 2 months, than 2 years ago, than 5 years ago?
I am emotionally. Yeah. You've seen me. We've spoken so much on the phone. You haven't seen me in a while. You walked up to me. Who are you?
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah.
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 That doesn't deny the heaviness of just feeling all day and all night.
Yeah,
But it's a tribute to
on the whole, I'm good. On the whole of it, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good, and I know, and I keep on coming back to it, and I could breathe into it, and I'm proud of it, and I celebrate it. I think that's a real gift that we keep on coming back to.
I think this
and that's what a workshop is not going to give you.
Yes.
It's not going to give it to
you.
Not directly.
Right. Yeah, this is fun.
Okay.
This is awesome. I want to do more of it.
And I'm
gonna post this. We're gonna share it. Thank you. First of all, this was trial and error. Last week I was all set up and it didn't work, so we pushed it off another week. So
it happens when it happens.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm very curious, patient, and open to what this particular venue is showing itself, and I hope people find it of value. That's my intention. It's like I want someone to find a sense of value in what we're sharing.
I've like the leadership I've been involved in, from like receiving from leaders and leading groups, has been being authentic and really simple, and has been giving a lot of value to people and to me from others. And I think we're aiming to do that. Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Feel good.